All right, so we're live, and as promised, we're going to do a couple of updates on some topics that are pretty relevant at the moment. So thanks, PB and Ben, for jumping on. So minimum pension payment. So we just want to give everyone a quick update on the minimum pension payment changes with super pensions, and I suppose what those changes are, who it's relevant to, and what we need to do to implement those changes for any of our clients. So maybe Ben, do you just want to touch on simply what those changes are? So what's the government announced in terms of minimum pension payment changes?
So essentially for any of our clients and people they might know around them, where they've got their super in a pension format that they're drawing down from, most of them would be aware that there's a minimum they have to draw down every financial year. Essentially, the government said that they're going to half those across the board. So as you get older, those minimums increase across the board. They've all been slashed in half for this financial year and for the full next financial year. So that won't automatically happen. You won't get an automatic reduction in your payment. We will need to have a chat to you about that. So just reach out to us when you feel the need or you have any questions around it, and we can look to implement that change. Essentially looking just to reduce any impact of drawing down on your super if your investments aren't suited to doing so, which I'll probably pass across to Peter to talk a little bit more about that side of it. But basically the thing is there's an opportunity there if you want to reduce what you're drawing down, your expenditure, is impacted at the moment. Reach out, have a chat to us, and we can help you out. So PB, you jump in and take over from there.
No, thanks, Ben. Thanks, Jay. I think probably the key thing with this is that the government initiative is, given the circumstances of lots of people's value coming back with the market downturn with the fear factor with coronavirus, many of the people out there with pensions are in investments that are going to force them to draw down their capital at a really bad time. Well, we want to make sure, the government initiative is to say, well, let's not draw down capital if you don't need it. Now, our situation with our clients is that 99.9% of you are not in investments where your capital is being forced to be drawn down, because we have cash reserves, defensive assets that we can make use of. The flow on from that is that some of you might need the cash flow anyway, so let's just keep what you're doing if you need the cash flow to meet your needs. But some of you may not need it now because our lifestyle changes are quite significant, or you may not need it because we were actually reinvesting or putting it elsewhere anyway. There could be great opportunities to draw down less of the cash, which might create more opportunities to do other investing with that. But we're not too concerned about the capital reductions of growth assets because we've got you protected against that anyway. It's about maximising what stays in the pension to create more opportunities when the market recovers.
Yeah, and it's probably another good indication in terms of portfolio construction, PB, about why it's important to have liquid assets and cash available to meet pension payments, and to anticipate that the fact that we don't want to be drawing from growth assets in a time when the market is actually poor. So, I mean, my view has always been, it's one of those things. If you don't need it, don't take it. So if you're in a position where you think really that money's just accumulating outside, I can justify taking it back to a new minimum. So I think, Ben, the starting minimum's 4%, and then it gradually increases up. So if you're on a 4% minimum, 2% of that is what you're able to take. Probably the point to note here is that it's not, other than the fact that we have to take a minimum, you can take whatever you need. Some people have a maximum, 10%. Some people have no maximum, but just because you alter things back to a new minimum doesn't mean you can't alter it if things were to change in the future. Is that fair?
Probably more relevant for maybe some of the older clients who their minimum is a lot higher. So, for example, if you're between 85 and 89 and your minimum is 9%, most of those accounts maybe aren't going to produce 9% of income. So maybe it's worth looking at reducing those. So the clients under 65 with a minimum of 4% cutting to 2%, it's not as big an impact. So probably the older clients, maybe it's more relevant to be asking the question.
One small addition to that too is that change is applicable for this full financial year that we're now in up to 30 June. So if you've already drawn down your old minimum, we might be able to stop your last 3 months' payments totally, and then from 1 July, cut them back to half what they were. So there's a couple of opportunities with planning, which helps preserve the cash in the fund and maybe allows us to do some other investment opportunities with that cash. So we'll be talking to you as we're reviewing anyway. And if anyone in our mind stands out as a client that could take advantage of this, we'll be trying to proactively chat with you.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you jump us to the punch with that, feel free, as we've said before, just shoot us a message and let us know. Maybe just the last thing before we head off is, Ben, just to action that change, we do have a little bit of paperwork we need to complete. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So things will just keep going as per normal with your minimum pension, as normal as it is at the moment, unless we actually action it with a document, which is relatively simple. It'll follow any conversation we have. Nothing will happen without a conversation. So just reach out, let us know your thoughts, and we can get that document out, which is a simple changeover. And then obviously between when we change it and then as things, the world releases and we start traveling and needing more money again, we can look to ease it back into that normal sort of pattern. So just touch base and we can help with the documents.
Okay, perfect. And we will, I think we mentioned offline beforehand, I think Peter said that if there's any documentation relevant to this, I'll just pop it in a link under this post on our Facebook group. But thanks for listening. We'll be up again in a sec with a few other updates. Thank you.